The opinions expressed in the video you are about to see are solely those of BoatTEST.com and its test captain.
Hi, Captain Steve for BoatTEST.com. Today, we're going to take a look at the features and performance of Evinrude's E-TEC 115. We tested the E-TEC 115 on a flats boat with an 1,800-pound test weight. Top speed came in at 5,350 RPM and 42 miles per hour, where we got an 11.6 gallon per hour fuel burn and 3.61 miles per gallon. Best cruise came in at 3,500 RPM and 24.6 miles per hour. At that speed, we were getting a 5.1 gallon per hour fuel burn and 4.86 miles per gallon. Time to plane was only 5.3 seconds, and we reached 30 miles an hour in 8.3 seconds. That's our look at the performance capabilities. Now let's take a look at some of the key components of this engine. We begin with the oil distribution system. These blue hoses deliver oil to each of the cylinders in precise amounts. Attached to the side of the manifold is a switch that senses each pulse of oil to be sure that those precise amounts are indeed being sent, and it can even sense the difference between air and oil. Here's the electric starter that connects to the flywheel above. Evinrude equips the starter solenoid with an anti-stick feature that activates and deactivates the starter with a bang instead of easing it on and off. It's part of how they're able to get so many thousands of hours out of the starter. Next door is the fuel filter water separator. It includes an integral water sensor, and this is a key feature to an engine running on the E10 fuels that have a tendency to collect water. This is the EMM. It's basically the brain of this computer-controlled engine. Technically, it's the integral ECU and power management system that creates the 55 volts which the whole system runs on, as well as the 12 volts that does the battery charging. In other words, it's a full onboard engine management system, as well as driving the ignition coil drivers and the fuel drivers. The EMM is also water-cooled. You can see the water inlet line and how it runs right through to the outlet side. This third hose is a back pressure relief. Here's your main fuse right next to a replacement that stores right next to it. One important note here is that this fuse is protecting circuits that integrate with the boat, not the engine. This engine can continue running without any electrical components connected to it. In fact, if you could pull start the 115, you wouldn't even need a battery to operate this engine. Here are the spark plugs right next to the individual fuel injectors. Evinrude engineers these injectors so that fuel is stored between the nozzle and a check valve at shutdown so that you have easier cold starts. On the back side, we see the fuel inlet and outlet sockets. It basically works like the speaker on your stereo to oscillate a coil to inject fuel in precise measurements. At idle, these inject about 5 cubic millimeters of fuel per shot, which is about the size of 2 champagne bubbles. That's key to how these engines run so economically. Just above is the thermostat that is easily serviced with just a socket wrench. Here's the ignition coil that provides spark to the plugs, and on the other side is the vapor separator. After receiving fuel from the fuel pumps, this vapor separator takes over to pressurize the fuel going into the injectors to 30 psi. Here's the starter solenoid that connects to the starter. The blue cap is on the magneto, which regulates the voltage in the system. When the 12-volt power comes out of this magneto, it's as clean as some of the power that technicians use for doing lab work. Now, as a professional captain testing hundreds of boats a year, I found that there are many in the same class that will accept either a 115 or a 90. So how do you decide between the two? Well, for starters, you're going from 3 cylinders to 4 cylinders, but in my research I discovered that they're using the same cylinders, same pistons, same rods. Both engines are using the same gear casing, but with a bigger engine, you're going to be able to use a bigger prop, which is going to give you higher speed and better torque. But for power to weight ratio, our tests have shown that the 90's your guy. The next question to ask is how much room do you have in your boat? The 90 carries its oil right on board. The 115, you need to have the oil tank inside the boat. One final thing I've discovered between the two engines, the 115 has a 50 amp alternator, the 90 has a 25 amp, but at idle, there's only 1 amp difference between the two. Well, that's our look at the features and performance of Evinrude's E-TEC 115. For BoatTEST.com, I'm Captain Steve. We'll see you on the water.